Hey there, everybody. Welcome to the Daily Space Weather. We've sped things up today for your viewing pleasure. Pardon our lateness. We're starting things out looking at colorized magnetogram from the Solar Dynamics Observatory. We see degrading sunspots, 2895. May not even have ombre anymore, I'm not sure. We've got one named sunspot down here. We'll show you further analysis. Also a coronal hole rotating in. Here's 1700 angstroms from the SDO. 2895 again decayed to plage. This one over here has set, so we'll be down to one sunspot group by the end of the day today, unless we see something else brew up. There's been a little bit of additional activity as well. Here we've added 94 angstroms. One of the ionized iron ultraviolet wavelengths, all from the SDO. Also, you may be interested in a coronal mass ejection warning that's currently in place. Radio flux is, well, I'm not sure, but here's the historic graph. The black line is the radio flux. I think we're at like 88. 85. Okay, so yeah, there you go. A reduction in sunspot number, a reduction in radio flux. No real surprises there. No space weather warnings. Again, there is a coronal hole. Let's take a look at seismicity. We saw a quake near Iceland, actually. So this is these white dots here. These are the historic quakes. And this one, not too far from Reykjavik here, the southern part of the island there, and but in a kind of an uncommon spot. As you can see, the historic earthquakes typically not around there, and again, especially not at a 5.0 magnitude. Just scrolling up the list here, and leave us a comment if you felt that earthquake on Iceland. Were you out riding a mountain bike? Deep quake at Bolivia. Largest of the past 24, I think, was this 5.7 at the southern portion of the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, near the Atlantic and African plate boundary there. The Atlantic/African plate boundary. South Sandwich Island still shaken with a 5.2 and a 4.6. Next, we'll look at volcanoes. We love the Volcanoes Discovery, volcanodiscovery.com's Volcanoes Today page. La Palma still erupting. Still stable here, so a similar sort of steady eruption over the past about 3 or 4 days. 8,000-foot ash plume, flight level 080 over La Palma. Karimsky. Don't fly your hang glider over Karimsky. It's very cold. It's producing an 18,000-foot ash plume through explosive activity. Subanosejima, flight level 050. Samisa Pochnoi. Occasional low-level eruptions. Please don't square dance the caldera. Do not cast virgin babies into the caldera. Popocatépetl. Explosive activity continues there in central Mexico. 19,000-foot ash plume from Popocatépetl. 17,000-foot ash plume from Fuego as it explodes in Guatemala. Nevado del Ruiz. 21,000-foot ash plume from Nevado del Ruiz. Nevado del Ruiz as it explodes. That's a Colombian volcano. Sangay exploding over Ecuador. 19,000-foot ash plume over Ecuador from Sangay. And we're unable to detect Sabancaya. Please don't pole vault the caldera. Please do visit our links. Today's featured product is the Do Not Pole Vault the Caldera socks. Don't forget to enter the promo code Why Wait on any orders to save 20 to 60% site-wide. Do you need a new coffee mug? We've got you covered. Plus, you can provide your friends and foes with a public service message. Very useful, especially in today's society, where people may have to be reminded not to pole vault the caldera. You could damage your vault pole, or perhaps other poles. Please leave a comment if you remember our video about the guy that tight-roped an active volcano. Yeah, he tightrope walked it. Anyway, don't pole vault the caldera. it could be unhelpful. We need the views on YouTube. So welcome to the Neo Renaissance, folks. Congratulations on realizing the channel exists. You can find that link at the smAsho merch link. There's some other items there as well you might be interested in. Again, don't forget to enter the promo code Why Wait to save 20 to 60% store-wide. Maybe it's ended. I don't know. You'll have to find out the hard way. Again, you can find links at the homepage, also links to the Smash team there. New posts recently went up to the Smash team, which said CME Warning. Yeah, coronal mass ejection warning. Let's look at magnetic data. We'll get to that CME warning in a moment. First, the magnetic data. From the GO 16 and 17, nothing to write home about there. Some satellite movement happening there, though, as the both satellites there, the 16 and 17, both must have changed their trajectory a bit. Arc-jet moments are when they create plasma by turning on their thrusters. Here is the top view ecliptic plane field plot. By the way, for you new viewers out there, this also shows you stereo A, which is here at L5, Lagrange point 5, and stereo B there at Lagrange point 4. Keep in mind the data is nearly 2 hours old. This was a recorded video. It's a YouTube exclusive, actually. Anyway, Earth solidly in a south pole current sheet. We'll also show you the line of sight field plot and the coronal hole solar B field plot. So there's the ecliptic plane field plot. Earth expecting to remain in a south pole current sheet. And here's the coronal hole line of sight plot. Sun's B field lines shown here in blue. And we've got some close-ups of that coronal hole. It's south pole oriented. What evil lurks in the hearts of coronal holes? I don't know. The photosphere? The photosphere, folks. Is it intercalate regions? By the way, if you're not familiar with coronal holes are what we'd call a low surface area on the sun. I mean, a low pressure region. So in meteorology, we would call that a low pressure region. Now the sun is a little bit more volatile than the Earth, as this low pressure region, as coronal holes do, is blasting out high-speed protons at a speed of, I don't know, probably like 800 kilometers per second. Something like that, 600 kilometers per second. And that's just a regular feature of coronal holes. They're very important when analyzing solar cycles, as they give us insight into the solar polar field reversal progression. And again, here's what's going on with the magnetic fields. That's the red area right down here. The South Pole-oriented coronal hole. Today's featured solar feature. There's a lot of hydrogen gas coming out of there, and it's coming out at quite a high speed. It's creating a coronal hole wind stream throughout the solar system, and what we call the Parker solar spiral, which is the basis for the heliospheric current sheet that we showed you a few frames ago. Next, the solar flare alert. Detected sunspot groups view. Again, 2895 appears to have decayed to plage. 2893 is setting, so we're going to have one sunspot, and it looks like it's alpha class at the moment, 2894. Pretty low levels of activity, pretty low likelihood of major flares. Likelihood of a CME, darn close to 100%. Here's the X-ray flux over the past 3 days. No major flares over the past 3 days. None expected in the next, unless we see a sudden sunspot grow. Just keep in mind the magnetic environment can change with basically no warning. No spikes in the proton flux, although we see the subsiding of the last relativistic particle strike from an M-class flare. How about the real-time solar wind? Current conditions are showing only about 4 protons per cubic centimeter for the solar wind density. Solar wind speed about 384 kilometers a second. The rest of those frames are fairly unremarkable. KP index and measurement of global geomagnetism is at 1. As the incoming plasma is fairly slow and diffuse. Here is a visualization of that. and it uses lots of data. If you want to read about it, it is a model, but it uses lots of data. Click on details on the Geospace Magnetosphere movies. You'll see a link to the space weather modeling framework, and you can read all about it. It's magnetohydrodynamic pressure over the past 4 hours. And this thing will auto-refresh, by the way, if you're wondering. You could let it display all day on your live stream if you like. For example, if you're expecting a coronal mass ejection strike, this will actually show you where the initial spikes are and the geomagnetism on the surface of the planet. Its geospace delta B changes to Earth's B field. Units in this one are nanotesla, which is magnetic flux density, a little different than magnetohydrodynamic pressure. The last one's plasma. This is magnetism on the surface of the planet. And here we go. Oh, and it's time to get scared, folks, because we've got a straight line here somewhat. We've got a somewhat straight line between Mars, Mercury, the Sun, Venus, and Uranus. So get your head out of Uranus and get very frightened of planets. I'm just kidding, folks. That's complete nonsense. If you're wondering what we use theplanetstoday.com. All one word, theplanetstoday.com. Keep in mind, this is not to scale. And don't worry, folks. The planets aren't going to kill you. Next, a star chart. And we've drawn in the deep sky objects here and different stars, as well as their targets, as Mars and Mercury rise ahead of the Sun once again. As the world as like sands through the hourglass of time, these are the views from Lagrange point 5 and Lagrange point 1, the location of stereo A, and the Soho-Lascaux C2. Again, coronal mass ejection warning in effect. So yeah, stereo A located at Lagrange point 5, that's on the left, right here, which puts the Earth off to the right from the imagery. Lascaux C2 located at Lagrange point 1, over here. Nothing yet, but keep an eye on it. You're going to see something happen. Will it be Earth directed? Well, it's way too early to tell, as we forecast coronal mass ejections before they've left the solar corona. And let's do another integrated cosmology segment. We've been shoving them in the daily space weather videos and not separating them at all. And so there's all kinds of little tidbits in our daily space weather videos. Did you know you can take the graduate course in cosmology at MIT for free online? Yeah, there it is. MIT OpenCourseWare. It's the entire physics curriculum at MIT. If you're confused about physics, why not take some classes? I have a feeling you might learn something if you study any of that, if not all of that subject matter. Today's random object is a cosmic object, to say the least. It's the supermassive radio source at the core of the Milky Way galaxy, known as Sagittarius A star. And you can see it's quite a consistent X-ray source. The upper right is the 16-year chart of hard X-rays from the core of the Milky Way galaxy. The upper left is the daily chart, and the lower left is the 30-day hard X-rays. And let's just go look at the region real quick. And what I did here is a basic query. I typed in SGR space A asterisk, which brought up this. There's a link to the CDS portal. And this is the place to find a ton of data, including spectral analysis and so on. You'll find that Sagittarius A star is only bright in certain portions of the frequency spectrum. So speaking of frequencies, here are the false color X-ray images. 3 different wavelengths here showing red, green, and blue at different portions of the X-ray bandwidth. And there you go. The busy section of space. Really the busiest section of space, you could probably say, in the entire Milky Way galaxy. Sagittarius A star, the massive radio source at the core of the galaxy. And believe it or not, it looks a little bit like that. If you look at it over the time span of those years shown up in the upper left of your screen, that's what's going on at Sagittarius A star. A bunch of super hot blue massive giant stars are orbiting it in these crazy perturbed, some very elliptical, some very circular orbits, and probably a feature of most galactic core regions. Let's continue on. to apod.nasa.gov. First time I'm seeing this myself, folks. It's the astronomy picture of the day. By the way, today's the 22-year anniversary. No, wait. I'll get to it later. I'll get back to that. Don't worry, folks. It's not the 22-year anniversary. I'm bad at math, apparently. It's the Triangulum Galaxy. So one of the neighbors of the Milky Way, and indeed Andromeda. It's in our local group, otherwise known as the Pinwheel Galaxy. And in multiple spectra like this, it's quite fetching. Anyway, check it out yourself if you like at apod.nasa.gov. Did you hear about the space station? The space station had to ascend about a mile. Why? Well, I'll tell you why. It's because of a bunch of space junk made of China, okay? China. China space junk blowed out of the sky with a rocket. Yeah, space junk, for real. The International Space Station had to move like a mile up in altitude to avoid 35114. Yeah. They were like, to minimize the likelihood of getting hit by a piece of space debris, which was created when China performed a missile test and destroyed their own satellite. Anyway, a little bit of news about the International Space Station there to close out today's brief cosmology segment. Let's move on to see if there are charging hazards to do things like cause communication problems, and certainly not at the moment. Those charging hazards can be caused by relativistic particles like electrons. Doesn't seem to be happening now. Here's the 1-year graph from solon.info. Here's the 3-day graph. Measurements from the GOES 16 and 17. And leave a comment if you've got a theory as to whether we'll make it into electron warning levels or not today. I don't think we will. And NOAA kind of agrees here, looking like we're going to see a little bit of a dip. I would tend to agree with that also. This is just a diagram of the Van Allen belts. Feel free to pause the video if you need to study the mileage. Here's the total electron content forecast. GPS errors continue over North America. Another diagram of the atmosphere. Distance is shown here in kilometers to show you where the F layer is, the F layer of the ionosphere, which is what we're now showing. Vibrational frequency at the bridge between space and Earth. We're seeing some anomalies here, especially in the southern Atlantic Ocean. Let's bring up the latest image. Here's the anomalygram. This is anomaly in megahertz from the 30-day median. You should see some mainly low-frequency anomalies, I think it was, in the South Atlantic there. Nope, both high and low-frequency anomalies. Right near the Drake Passage, which is a very weird part of the planet, folks. Just to explain what I mean, this part of the planet right here, that is the spot where most of the equilibration between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans has to occur. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's the deadliest strait in the world. Is that considered a strait? I don't know. I don't know my geographical designations well enough. I have to go back and take 8th grade ecology. Anyway, here's the latest image in anomalygram. Big anomalies happening here over the northern Indian Ocean and Southeast Asia at 12:15 Universal Time. Another fantastic meteorology segment. Check it out if you haven't. We've got bonus features to show you here, so let's do it. The El Teide Ground-Based Solar Observatory is first. Here's what's going on quite recently, at least in the last couple of frames. As a coronal mass ejection warning is in place. Here's the latest intensitygram. Here's the latest magnetogram right after we analyze this a little bit. Again, that's going to set And there's an intermediary beta-class sunspot group has formed there in between. So we'll see if that stays long enough to get a name. And this has got an equilateral triangle on it, which everybody knows what that means. That means Freemasons are controlling the sun through CERN, I believe is the current consensus on that. It hasn't decayed to plage. It wasn't as gone as I thought it was. It's still a beta-class sunspot, so there still is some possibility of some solar flares. That's beta-class. That's beta-class. Likelihood of solar flares has gone up since yesterday. And again, coronal mass ejection warning. Here's 304 angstroms ionized helium from the SDO. And here's a close-up of the sunspot with the the equilateral triangle of surrounding umbra. If you needed something on the surface of the sun, on the Earth-facing portion of the sun to be frightened of, I know equilateral triangles are very scary. Isosceles triangles, less so. Right triangles are, of course, scary because of the Illuminati. But in any case, thanks for tuning into the video. Congratulations on realizing the channel exists, and may that solar wind be at your back.